Good morning once again. I was going to do a different video today, but in light of what's going on in North Dakota, I just felt like I really needed to say a couple things, so here goes. This is wrong on so many levels, and I'm not going to go too deep into the obvious, but first of all, the fact that anybody would be investing $3 billion in fossil fuel, not only is it so yesterday, it's completely short-sighted. It's sort of like a farmer who, instead of saving 10% of his seeds to plant for next year, just eats all of his crop because he just wants it all now. So these greedy corporations, all they care about is their money now and getting ahead and winning this game of money and control and power, and they aren't seeing the ramifications for their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. It's so short-sighted, it's almost stupid. Sorry, but that's how I see them, as stupid, overgrown bullies who, you know, their bodies grew up, but their psyches didn't, and they still want to win, control, and dominate. So I wrote myself a couple of notes here so that I would remember to cover all the points I wanted to make. But aside from whether you agree or disagree with greenhouse warming or whether fossil fuels should be used, there's so many more options out there now, and why take the risk? If there's a risk that fossil fuels are harming the planet, then go to clean energy. It's available. It's becoming affordable. It's time to make the switch. Even Jimmy Carter back in the 70s was trying to get us off the addiction of fossil fuels. And this is 40 years later. It's time. So that's the first point. The second point is to address the police officers that are following their orders, because of course these are the most disturbing images that we're seeing, is people who are coming to the aid of these corporations who really are acting within their rights anyway, but they're bigger, they're stronger, they're the schoolyard bully, and so they're going to get what they want, and they employ these police officers to come and do their dirty work for them. And I would strongly urge you to watch my video, Is Morality Relative or Absolute? The Real Truth, because I really break down the difference between natural law versus man-made law, and it unravels the conflicts of so many of our country's laws, our man-made laws, that are in direct opposition to what's really right and what's really true. You know, very clear, easy example, Nazi Germany, right? There were laws that were passed that were in direct violation with what's truly right and in direct violation to natural law. So just because the soldiers of that time followed the law and did what they were told to do, by no means made it right. And now, hindsight, we can see how that was such a direct and horrible violation of human rights. So these police officers, sad to say, they are responsible for their actions. And just because somebody tells you to do something doesn't mean that you're not responsible for acting on your conscience and doing what you know is right. And of course they have the most to lose. You know, they could lose their job, and their families are depending on them, and their paycheck is depending, and it definitely takes courage and an act of will to make that hard choice. But at the end of the day, right is right when it comes to violating other people's rights, and wrong is wrong. And if you're, just because somebody is telling you to do it doesn't make it okay. So that's my second point. The other thing is about our rights, okay? So we know that water is a basic human right. You know, we have the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Without water, there is no life. You know, we take it for granted. We go and we turn on our faucet and we're able to cope with the water that comes right into our kitchen and living room, or not living room, bathrooms, right? But think about Flint, Michigan. Their water was poisoned. Their children were being poisoned, and some of them even had mental effects from this lead poisoning that was occurring. Now, not only is their town ravaged, I mean, their value, their home is pretty much zero now, because who's going to move there? They can't sell that home. But who even cares about that? Because their children have been poisoned. They themselves have been poisoned. Okay? So these same corporations that have this short-sightedness, they don't seem to care how it ravages communities or the earth or even whether it could potentially poison people. And maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but there were over 3,000 oil pipe leaks in the last 6 or 7 years. That's like almost 500 a year. I mean, it happens. And if we do something that's irresponsible as a parent, we may not be beating them or harming them themselves, but if we put them in harm's way, then we could be charged with child endangerment. And we could face charges or even have our children taken away from us because of child endangerment. Well, if these corporations are building these pipelines that go through a water supply that tens of thousands of people depend on for life itself, that's endangerment. So why is that risk allowed to occur? I mean, I'm sure that nobody thought that Fukushima was going to be a problem because they just cared about the energy it was going to produce and the money they were going to make. But that short-term solution is not worth the long-term effects, because we like to think as humans that we have control, but the truth is we don't. And we don't know if Mother Nature has other plans like an earthquake or a tsunami or whatever the case may be. So it's not okay to risk their rights. They know that. They know that they have the right to stand up for what's theirs, their safety, and they're demonstrating this peacefully, which is their right. I mean, we support and honor the fact that Martin Luther King did this back in the 60s, and I'm sure it wasn't fun for him either, doing rally after rally, march after march, but sometimes it takes that stamina, being willing to get off your couch, go out into the streets, stand up, speak your voice, and stand in your power to get something done. We applaud him now, and we should applaud them because they're standing up for their basic human rights, and we need to stand with them. So why am I putting a shout out to gun owners? Well, think about this. We believe, and you believe, in the right to bear arms as one of our basic rights as an American citizen. I fully support that right. But what does that right really speak to? It speaks to the fact that you have the right to defend your life, the right to defend your property, and the right to defend your rights. And you so much have that right that you have the right to use lethal force if somebody's violating your rights. That's why you have the right to bear arms, to defend your rights. And so if we're not going to stand with our brothers and sisters while their rights are being violated, then we shouldn't be surprised when some bigger schoolyard bully who's richer and more powerful says, you know what, we just decided we don't want you to have the right to bear arms anymore, so we're coming after that now. And if we're not willing to stand with them, then we shouldn't be surprised if they come for us next. I mean, I know we all want to live in our little protective bubble and think, well, that doesn't really affect me. I really want to stay in my bubble too. But the problem is, if you think you can stay in your bubble, maybe you can for a month or a year or 10 years. But eventually, they're coming for your bubble. So we need to learn the lesson now before it gets out of hand and we start to lose more and more of our rights. So I think that's it. Thanks for bearing with me, and I'll see you next time. Adios.